Supercharged, a podcast focusing on renewable energy and the passion behind the movement. Supercharged is a thoughtful journey through renewable energy sustainability and an integrated lifestyle. Subscribe and listen each week as we chat with thought leaders, influencers, and those who simply choose to live a better way. And hopefully, along the way, you too will be inspired to live supercharged. This is Kevin Pruitt with another episode of Supercharged, the podcast of renewable energy, sustainability, and the passion behind the movement. And I have a good friend with me on today, Karthy Chandra. Karthy, thanks for joining us on Supercharged.
Hey, Kevin, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I reached out to Karthy and I said, hey, I want you to come on this new podcast that we're doing. And I kind of told her what it was about. And she was the most enthusiastic response I think I've ever received for reaching out to a potential guest. And I'm just really anxious to hear kind of her backstory. But to get the ball rolling, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. My name is Karthy. I am an immigrant, came to the US from India with a little pit stop in Canada, grew up in Portland, Oregon, and have went to school on the East Coast, lived in Boston for a little bit, and now I'm in LA. And when I was in school, I founded a tech company called Goalden Hour. We're building a productivity tool that helps people make more time for their goals and good habits, combining calendar, tasks, and habit tracking in one tool, and offering something of a planner plus personal coach in your pocket to empower people to prioritize and plan for the things that are truly important in their lives.
So last time we talked, I think you were in Portland and you were in LA at actually a founder's kind of startup house. Is that right?
Yeah. I'm living in Launch House right now. Super cool concept. Basically a bunch of founders co-working, co-living in a really nice house. We're in like this Beverly Hills mansion with an incredible view. And yeah, it's awesome. Just, intense bonding experiences, lots of fun events that they're throwing. And the whole concept really is to bring entrepreneurs, creators, investors, people in the ecosystem that want to support entrepreneurship in one place to, let some of that synergy and magic happen.
So you and I, when I reached out to you, I said, this the kind of the theme of the podcast is really around like sustainability and what that means, and maybe the intersection of good business and social good. I'm really curious. I mean, we've asked this question every podcast, but I would love to get your thoughts on this. How would you, when you hear that word sustainability, how would you define that?
Yeah, to me, sustainability really means being able to meet your needs without compromising the needs of other, right? Whether that other is future generations, whether that other is people in your community, a partner. I think about like what sustains a relationship. It means you're able to meet your needs in a relationship while also having your partner meet their needs. Sustainability in a business means being able to make money for the business to survive while also meeting the needs of customers. So it's really like finding this balance between, the individual and the collective.
Mm. That, I mean, what a great picture. And I talked just before we hit the record button about, how comprehensive, you view sustainability versus, just kind of this flat, definition in one sphere. But how does the way you view sustainability, how does that change how you, do business, or how you view life?
Yeah, I think it extends to like thinking about others in addition to thinking about yourself. So, a lot of people go throughout their lives just, focused on their needs and their wants and not really considering how those needs or wants might affect other people in their ecosystem, whether that's their family or their community or animals or the planet
Mm.
at large. And I think, adopting a mindset that is geared towards sustainability is being very deliberate about every action that you take and not just thinking about how it impacts you, but how it impacts people around you, how it impacts, the chain of events that have led to, a certain action that you're taking, how it alters the chain of events that might happen as a result of an action that you take. So it's just really being more thoughtful about how your behaviors both impact yourself and the people around you, both in the past, present, and future.
So you talked a little bit at the very first of you founded this app or process called Goalden Hour. So when you think of sustainability, when you think of kind of this holistic, perspective, how could Goalden Hour kind of play into that?
Yeah. Well, I think as individuals, we hold incredible power to make changes in our lives that, both improve our own quality of life, but also improve the quality of life of the people around us, of the planet, of life around us. But a lot of us don't make it much farther than, watching a documentary about climate change
Mm,
or, the livestock and agriculture industry that leaves us feeling really shocked and appalled. And so the majority of people aren't able to translate their, desires to be more eco-conscious, or to even more broadly to like take a skill that they learned reading a book, and actually apply it into their life, and make some sort of behavior change that impacts themselves and the people around them. And so with Goalden Hour, we really want to nudge people to take small steps towards goals that are good for them as individuals, and the planet at large, right? And I think there are a lot of examples of how people can do that, but it starts from understanding what are actions that I can take that allow me to be more sustainable, that allow me to show up more sustainably, and then building consistency with that, right? Actually implementing some sort of routine or habit into your life and saying, I'm dedicated to doing this. Maybe I'm not going to just commit to doing something forever all the time, but I'm taking small steps that align my actions with my values and my aspirations. And then, ultimately helping people forge alliances across shared goals so that they can come together to take steps that encourage the masses to be healthier, more eco-conscious, and more compassionate to one another.
So it really is more, it's almost a community approach versus, just maybe a collection of individuals. So as
Totally.
you were talking about, so I'm curious. So the whole idea of, productivity and habit forming and stuff like that, that this has been the first time that we've kind of touched on this in this podcast about, we've talked a lot, almost every episode about, small steps that you can take, but part of sustainability is how do you continue the
Right.
process itself. And so
Right.
how, Golden Hour sounds like a perfect opportunity to, once you decide on those steps to take, how you can continue to do that on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the whole premise of the product is helping you achieve your goals, and the basic building blocks of the product are goals that are broken down into actionable steps, either tasks or routine. So either things that you do once and cross off your list, or things that you do on a repetitive basis, like habits. And so the idea is that, when you choose to adopt a goal into your life, maybe it's to protect the planet, right? To be more sustainable in a way that you live, that allows us to combat climate change. There are specific things that you can do in order to work towards that. Eating less meat, bringing reusable bags to the grocery store, taking shorter showers, right? And so these are actions that people can start to incorporate into their lives. And I'm sure a lot of people know about this information. They've watched documentaries or they've read books, but it, again, the biggest hurdle, I think, is making the jump from paper to practice, to
Mm.
learn something and then to actually implement it into your life. And so the way that we can facilitate that is by, helping people identify what their goals are, and then offering them different options for how they might be able to achieve that goal or take steps towards that goal. And so part of our product features this like goal shopping experience where you can browse different ideas and activities and choose what you want to bring into your life. And we actually have a goal for protecting the planet. And it does have a variety of ideas that you might be able to incorporate into your life. And so, you might pick one of those, and you could decide to be vegetarian 5 days out of the week. And that might be something that you consciously choose to align yourself with and track over time. Maybe you take things up a notch, take things down a notch, depending on, what feels right to you. But in general, you have this inclination towards wanting to be sustainable or wanting to align yourself with a goal that is important to you. And then you identify the behavior that is going to help move the needle in the right direction. And then the tool is really designed to help you build consistency with habits, get you to practice rituals that empower you to align your actions on a daily basis with your top priorities. So things like planning your day, reviewing and reflecting on a regular basis, prioritizing your goals so that you're focused on the most important and essential things on any given week. And then, also sort of looking across different areas of your life, and seeing where there are deficiencies, or where you've maybe need to invest more time, because I really believe that we are multi-dimensional beings, and we live in unprecedented times where there are so many aspects of our lives that we need to balance in order to be well.
Yeah.
Right? Physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, financially, occupationally, socially, environmentally, right? And so there's so much going on in our lives that sometimes we forget to do things that are aligned with sustainability or eco-conscious behaviors, because we're just so busy trying to manage all these moving parts of our life. So I think it's now more than ever important to be incredibly intentional about what we plan for and prioritize in our lives, because there's so much that we're bombarded with on any given day that if we don't have a clear set of values and a clear idea of what it is that we want to achieve, it's easy to get pulled in a lot of different directions and kind of lose that groundedness.
Yeah, I mean, I love what you just talked about, almost finding clarity, in the midst of all the noise,
Right.
that we're bombarded with on a daily basis. But to go back initially, when you were talking about sustainability and the things that came to mind was, how it applies to so many different areas of life. And, you mentioned, so maybe you have a goal of wanting to, eat more healthily or whatever during the week. And I'm thinking there is such an intersection between habit and health, about how to sustain habits. It's easier to sustain things when you're living a more healthy existence. And have you seen that to be true?
Absolutely. I mean, I think when you live a life where you feel like you're healthy, you are directed towards the right goals, you're making meaningful progress in your life, you're fulfilled by your social relationships, you've got enough money in the bank in order to live a comfortable lifestyle, you are going to be so much happier in how you show up in the world. And that level of fulfillment and happiness starts to overflow, right? And then you can actually think about giving back to others. That's why I think it's so important to start with a productivity tool that
Hmm.
helps people get
Yep.
aligned in themselves, because you can't pour from an empty cup, right? If
Hmm.
you're not feeling fulfilled and happy, um, and just directed in the right path in your own life, there's a very small chance that you're going to be able to give back to others, that you're going to be able to actually think beyond yourself, and think about being sustainable within your community or within the world, because you haven't really figured out how to be sustainable within yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely it does. And it is really interesting. And I'm just I'm talking about, all things around sustainability. And, you talked a lot about more on a micro level, on a personal level, but what have you seen like societally? I mean, I know you live on the West Coast and, obviously electric cars, solar power, those types of things that are more macro, you probably see more often in that space. But what are your thoughts on the renewable energy space and how you can, people can incorporate those things that are a little more, larger scale into their lives?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of times when people, like individuals, think about sustainability, they think about, um, you know, changing policies that, you know, change the way our like societal structures work, right? So, how companies are choosing to operate and whether that's sustainable, and they don't actually think about how much power they have in their own lives to make changes that are aligned with sustainability. I think one of the really big changes that is one that is very hard to reconcile is eating meat. You know, the livestock and agriculture industry accounts for more carbon emissions than all of transportation combined. And that's because there's demand for it, right?
Mm.
There's demand for meat that unfortunately, results in greenhouse gases and a lot of carbon emissions. So, I think it's something that a lot of people have difficulty reconciling because, I get it, meat is delicious, it's so ingrained in our culture that it's hard to give up. But at the same time, if the whole world ate half as much meat, that would be as if half the world was vegetarian, and that could actually go a long, long way in reducing and curbing greenhouse gases. And so, again, I think part of the definition that I gave about sustainability is like being able to meet your own needs without compromising the needs of others. And so if it's important to you that you are able to, enjoy meat every once in a while, I think that's fine. But if you truly believe that, this is one of the factors that contributes to climate change and you want to make an impact on that, then you can do things like being a weekend vegetarian to start off with, right? Or what I personally do is I try not to directly generate demand for meat, so I never buy it, I never order it, but if it's there or if someone offers it to me and I feel really compelled to have some, then I let myself indulge. And that sort of rule that I've set for myself means that I've cut down my meat consumption by like 90-95%, but
Yeah.
at the same time I haven't totally restricted or cut myself off from that.
Right.
When I choose to, I have the option. And so, again, I think it's these like small habit changes that we can make in our lives that still reflect our desires and are still like fit within the boundaries of what we consider acceptable or doable. Sometimes it's just unreasonable to make certain changes in our lives, and that in itself is unsustainable, right? If you just decide that, all right, I'm going to be vegetarian today after eating meat every meal of your life, that's going to be really hard and it's not going to be sustainable, and you're probably just going to slip up and then decide that you can't do this and go back to the way you were before. So, I think it's sort of like easing our way into these habit changes that we want to make. Um, like I said, taking shorter showers. Maybe you take a 20-minute shower right now, and you start to cut that down by a minute every week. If you're forgetting to bring your reusable bags to the grocery store, you build habits around, making sure that you put them in the car before you go grocery shopping, or after you unload the groceries, they go back in the car. That way you always have them with you. So there are these like small habitual tweaks that we can make in our lives for all sorts of habits that allow us to like use these different levers that we have in order to get habits to stick.
Mm.
And once they stick, you can layer other habits on top, right? The whole point of a habit is that you're doing it with like little to no conscious thought. And so at some point it becomes easier to uh, you know do these habits that might have been very daunting at first, and that like 1% improvement every day that you make um, allows the habit to stick and be cemented into your life, and then you can sort of layer on additional habits and
Right.
and sort of like build up a repertoire of things that help you achieve your goals.
So maybe somebody will come up with like a nicotine patch for to become a vegetarian. They can just slowly feed meat protein into your bloodstream to kind of wean you off. But
Yeah.
I've got a quick question about just habits. I mean, you've been in this
Yeah.
space for quite a while, and you've really kind of doubled down on just productivity. And so you've heard all the time about habits, like you do anything for 21 days or 21 time things, in a row, you suddenly form a habit, or 60 days or whatever that magic number is. is there kind of a habit stick formula that says if you do, something over and over again for a certain period of time, that it just almost becomes second nature?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's um, some value in like doing something consistently. I don't know if like 21 is a magic number. It probably depends on the person, what the habit is. Some habits don't necessarily make sense for you to do every day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like maybe you go to the gym 3 times a week, and that's enough. You don't need to go to the gym 7 days a week. So it's not like you need to form a habit where every day, you wake up and you go to the gym. It's more like you have a target value for what you want to achieve, and you're trying to hit that target value, and maybe even take that target value up a notch. um, I personally think what's more important to consider when you're building habits is trying to understand why a habit doesn't stick. And there could be a variety of reasons why it doesn't stick. It could be because you're forgetting to do the habit. It could be because you're not motivated to do the habit. Maybe it feels too daunting. And there are definitely like different levers that you can pull based on um, the knowledge that you have about why that habit isn't sticking. So for example, if you're forgetting to do a habit, a great way to get that habit to stick is to layer it on top of a habit that you already do consistently. So let's say I'm trying to meditate every day, but I'm forgetting to do it. But I do make coffee every day. That's just part of my routine. Well, maybe I start to meditate when I am brewing my cup of coffee.
Mm,
That
yeah.
way, whenever I start to make coffee, it like triggers in my mind, this is when I meditate, right? And now you've wired those two habits together. And so that meditation habit is much more likely to stick. If you are not motivated to do a habit, you might consider thinking about the why behind that habit, right? If you're not motivated to go to the gym, instead of like thinking about how you're going to be, slogging away at the gym, you're imagining, how strong or fit you're going to be in the future, how happy that's going to make you. And that motivates you to go to the gym. You could celebrate every time you finish a habit. If you really want to go to the gym consistently, and at the end of that gym, you like give yourself a pat on the back, or maybe even you treat yourself to like a protein snack that you really like. It sort of like roots that habit in, because you start to associate that positive emotion that you get for completing that habit with actually doing the habit. So yeah, there are all
Yeah,
sorts of things like
absolutely.
that. I think another thing that a lot of people struggle with is like feeling if their habits are too much or too daunting, and that can kind of get in the way of building consistency too. And there's a great book called Tiny Habits, where it's by BJ Fogg, and he talks about breaking your habits down into the smallest thing that you can do to like get that habit started. So an example would be, maybe you want to go on a walk every day, and ideally you want to walk a mile. But some days you're just not going to have time to walk a mile. And what most people would do is just skip that habit because they just don't have time. But then that interferes with your ability to like build consistency with that habit. So instead, if you think about, okay, what is a scaled down version of this habit, right? Maybe you don't have time to walk a mile, but surely you have time to walk around the block, or even just like walk on your treadmill for 2 minutes. And even if not that, the starter step for that habit could just be putting on your sneakers. So you
Mm.
could set up something that says, every day after I make my coffee, I will put on my sneakers. And putting on your sneakers will most likely result in you going on that walk. But at least you've like built that habit around, getting your sneakers on. And that is most likely going to prompt you to keep that habit consistent.
And it's the appropriation. I mean, so you were so good that you're answering my questions before I asked them. So I mean, that was like my second question on habit was, is it better that you associate it with something else, that something you're already doing, like it's already in your kind of your natural rhythm of life? And the
Absolutely.
perfect example you gave was, once you're making coffee, you can meditate or whatever that is. So
Yeah.
you already answered that question, but if you want to expand on that a little bit more, talk about it.
For sure. I think it is super powerful to have rituals in your life, um, particularly in the morning and the evening. And what I mean by that is like a series of things that you do at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day to either prime and prepare you to be your best self during the day, or to like help you wind down at the end of the day so that you get good sleep. You wake up on time, and you have this like natural cadence to your life that
Mm,
allows you to just be operating from a place of ease and efficiency. And so, one of the suggestions that I make to most people is to figure out, what does your perfect morning routine look like? How long does it take? Does it incorporate time for yourself? Time for you to either be um, working on yourself, whether that's through exercise or reading or journaling or meditating. Does it incorporate food that's healthy for you, that's going to, again, like put your brain in a position where it's going to operate effectively and efficiently? Does it include taking care of other things in your household, maybe things related to your family?
yeah.
Yeah. And what does that look like? And then how do you like perfect that morning routine so that like when you wake up and get out of bed in the morning, you know exactly what you're going to do first and what goes on after that and after that. And there's not a lot of conscious thought about, okay, like what's the next thing that I do or the next thing that I do after that. Like you have this repertoire of things that is basically muscle memory that you can execute on quickly, and know that at the end of that routine, you're ready to go. Like you're fired off, and you're in a great position to be able to make good on your goals.
Well, Karthy, I love the way that this conversation has gone, specifically related to just the intersection or the juxtaposition of, productivity and habit forming and sustainability, kind of that perfect Venn diagram. And that's the golden circle in the center of those three elements. And is there anything that we haven't touched on you just want to kind of close us out with today, just related to this whole topic, and maybe just a word of, wisdom for those listening?
Yeah, well, I would say that a great place to start if you're trying to figure out how to do all this goal setting and behavior change in your life is to think about your values. One thing that I encourage people to do is consider, what am I good at? What do I enjoy doing, and what matters to me? And that kind of reflection exercise can help you distill your core values. And then once you know what your core values are, it's also easier to think about the types of goals that you want to set. And, another great thing to think about on a weekly basis is, like, what are the areas of life that I want to focus on? Is it my health? Is it fitness? Is it my relationships? Is it my business? Is it my finances? Like what needs the most attention from me right now? And then like use all of that. You take this value driven approach, combined with, an assessment of where you need to channel your focus to set some goals in your life. And the way that I like to frame goals is either they're like lifestyle oriented goals or they're milestone oriented goals. So they're things like running a marathon, getting a job, getting into college. Those are really milestone oriented. At some point you're going to either achieve that goal or not.
Right.
And there's these like lifestyle oriented goals, and those are the things like eating healthy, managing stress, fostering relationships, protecting the planet, things that you're likely going to be doing for the rest of your life. And so once you've set these goals, and you know which goals you want to focus on, break them down into actionable steps. Figure out what are the tasks or the habits that you're going to build in order to achieve this goal, or keep making progress towards this goal. And then on a daily basis, figure out how those things fit into your day. I mean, at the end of the day, this, like, everything that you do kind of fits in the context of 24 hours, right? And how you're going to execute in that 24 hours is really what defines what you make of your life over time. And so being very intentional about, this is what I'm prioritizing in my life during this period, and this is what I'm going to focus on today in order to align my actions with what's important to me. That's really the key to success.
What a way to wrap us up today. And we'll make sure that Golden Hour is in the show notes so people can can touch base with what you're working on, what you've created. And Karthy, just thank you again for just taking time today and just chatting with us just around this entire space of sustainability and what it means to live differently and live more intentionally. Karthy, have a great weekend.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you, and we'll be in touch. I look forward to seeing the show.